She saw seashells by the seashore. She did a lot of that and a whole lot more. So, hello, I'm here with Anya from Mary Anning Rocks, and I'm in Adelaide, and you used to live in Adelaide, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we were £10 poms in the 70s. So my
Same.
parents, yeah. Oh,
Well,
really?
£10
You
Scottish
stayed.
person, but yes.
I was very little. I think I was 3, and then we left when I was 5.
So, Adelaide connection between me and Mary Anning and you and Mary Anning. Mary Anning. So 4 years ago, you started, and Evie started this thing. And I guess you never, when you start a thing like that, you say, "Oh, I've just got an idea. I might," but I want to go back a bit. Like, so was Evie or you? Were you? How conscious of you?
We'd moved. Obviously, I've got a northern accent. I'm originally from Manchester, but I've lived more down south than I have up north now. And at the time, we were living in London, and I got a job that brought me down to Dorset, working for New Look, which is a fashion brand that were based in Weymouth. And Tracy, I joined a book club, and Tracy Chevalier's book came out, and I think it was 2008. I think was it earlier than that? Something like that. And I read this book, and I was halfway through, and I kind of knew that it was based on this woman, but I just couldn't believe that I'd never, ever, ever heard this woman's name. And we'd come all the way down from Manchester as kids. You know, when we came back from Australia, we went back to Manchester, but we'd come all the way down to Charmouth and Lyme Regs in the Jurassic. Well, it wasn't called the Jurassic Coast then. And we'd fossil, because my mum was an amateur geologist, and she, you know, we used to, and I have tins of ammonites and fossils I've still got that I collected in the 70s. And not once ever was that woman's name ever mentioned. So when I'm reading this Tracy Chevalier novel, it was a bit of a kind of like a sort of a lightning strike, really, for me, but also
that's
really
ironic,
angry.
Isn't it? Given that she was struck by lightning. Yes.
Yeah, struck by lightning when she was a baby. So it was my own little lightning strike. And it just beggars belief that this incredible woman was just not talked about at all, ever. You know, not even in Lyme Regs when you went down there.
And it's interesting because for me, who I dwell in the paleontology space, she is the speaking of mother of dragons. I mean, she's the mother of paleontology. She's so many women in particular that I know, and I did a series of interviews a couple of years ago with some women in paleontology, and a variety of different ages, and they all spoke of, yes, like Mary's one of the reasons.
Within the kind of earth sciences and those kinds of sort of circles of people, totally everyone knows who she is, but you step outside and that's quite a niche.
So how did you go from reading the book to then you and Evie saying, we need to raise some money?
So it was 100 years of suffrage, so a lot of the schools were kind of celebrating what votes for women. And she had a very brilliant teacher at her middle school who had talked to them about a statue that had been put up in Parliament Square of the suffragette Millicent Fawcett. And it was the first ever statue of a woman in Parliament Square. So that in itself, and that was only about 5 or 6 years ago. And so she came home full of all this kind of like suffragette movement, this statue, and we'd come off the beach fossil hunting, and she just stopped and asked, can we go and see Mary's statue? Because it's not, a big jump from, if Millicent's got a statue, surely Mary's got one in Lyme Regis. And I had to explain, I had to say that unfortunately in Victorian times, women weren't considered equal to men, and they couldn't own property, they couldn't be educated, there was lots of things they couldn't do. And because Mary was 3 things you really didn't want to be, which was female, working class, and poor, she didn't really stand a chance. So she'd been forgotten. And it was Evie's physical reaction to that. So her neck went all red and blotchy because she was really angry. And she said these words to me. She said, why is it that even after all this time, Mummy, women can't be great? And I just thought, you know what, she's right. You know, it's an absolute appalling, shocking shame. And that was it.
An
So I knew in that
moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just, and I knew in that moment that, you know, and at that time we just thought we'd join another group. We were convinced that there'd be a Facebook group or somebody in the town championing this amazing woman. So we were just going to join that and help them raise the money. And, you know, we did a couple of Google searches and realized very quickly that there was nothing, literally nothing. And I thought, blimey, yeah.
There's an interesting thing that sometimes happens, and I've worked in some regional communities here in and around Australia in terms of exploring their prehistoric stories. And sometimes proximity to a place, if you're too close to it, they're like, oh yeah, that's like, I did some work with the Naracoorte Caves and the community there, and for a while people in the community are like, oh yeah, that's the place where the tourists go. So we did some really interesting stuff, music based, of course, where we got the local community to go, wait a minute, this is our story.
You know, I love, and that's why I'm glad we've been asked to write this book, because the book is a lot about Mary, but it's also about the campaign and how we did it. And I would have loved to have walked into Waterstones and said, have you got a book called How to Build Statues for Dummies, please? Because that would have been ideal, you know, from A to B, how do you do it? You know, because there was nothing like that. I think very, very quickly, I reached out to, there were two, at the time, there were two quite prominent campaigns who were doing similar things for forgotten women of history. And one was the Mary Wolphinstone craft statue in London, and the other one was oh gosh, the first ever female MP, and it was in Plymouth. Can't remember her name. Menopause, can't remember anything. And reached out to these two groups, and that was a real sort of eye-opener for me, because they were so, oh, and the Emmeline Pankhurst statue in Manchester, they were brilliant, they were really helpful. And I reached out to these three different organisations, and they were, and thinking they might be a bit cagey, or I really didn't know, but they literally couldn't be more helpful. They just, especially the councillor Andrew Simcock, who led the Emmeline Pankhurst campaign in Manchester. I mean, he was incredible. I mean, he gave over so much information and said, right, this is what we did, but that wasn't great. If I did it again, I'd do it this way. So you should do it that way. And I'm like, oh, right, okay. And then when we were like struggling to kind of look at artists, because we didn't want to do a call out and get hundreds of people, we wanted to kind of be a bit more targeted. We knew we wanted to just deal with women artists, because if you can imagine, only 3% of statues in the UK are of named women, and the rest are of men. You can imagine then how many of those said statues are actually made by women. Very, very few. So we wanted to do a bit of a double whammy. It was a campaign run by women for a woman. So we wanted an female artist to do the work. And he was brilliant, because he was in the same camp, because he, although they looked at all artists, they did it in a way that they knew they wanted to work with a female artist as well to do the Emmeline Pankhurst. So that they were hugely helpful. And actually, in a kind of a roundabout, strange way, because of all that interactive loveliness that we got, when we started to get quite a lot of press, we then got a lot of other campaigns coming to us saying, how did you do this? How did you do that? And actually now there's a spin-off group called Visible Women, and there's 15 campaigns now that have been kind of roughly a good half of them been inspired by Evie's campaign. That, well, if they're doing it in Lyme Regs, then we should be doing it in Congleton and Stockport and Glasgow. And so we've got 15 campaigns now across the UK of these amazing, and we have like a really lively WhatsApp group, and we also have a page, a Visible Women page on the internet, and it's great. You know, more and more people come to us for advice, and it's like a self-help support mechanism to just encourage more people to raise statues. Because actually, you know, if you tap into the right veins and the right kind of crowds of people, which is obviously what we did, you'll find that whoever your champion, whoever you're trying to raise a statue for, there will be a crowd of people that love that person or what they stand for. And because I'm a fashion, I come from I spent 35 years in the fashion industry, and I also teach at Bournemouth University. And I teach a lot about within fashion marketing and PR and stuff like that. So I used a lot of those skills that I used in that to kind of like brand build. So we did all the t-shirts, and I just kind of went where I felt comfortable, where I knew I could manage that, and it was a great idea. So yes, these t-shirts raise a little bit of money. We use a third-party person, but the whole idea about them is that we get amazing press. They're like walking billboards,
Well,
so
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was it really. We just surrounded ourselves with some really brilliant people. We got a committee together quite quickly, and I actually sort of headhunted people that I thought like. So I worked with a girl at the university called Esther, and she came on quite early doors, and she's a graphics designer. So again, she was able to do all the branding and how we looked, because we all had to be on brand and it all had to look cohesive and look right, to give us that kind of kudos and that professionalism. But the funniest thing was when we knew we had to get patrons on board, and I said to Evie, and this is when she was little, I said, so we need to get patrons, and she was like, oh, what's a patron? So I explained what they are and why they're important. And she said, so they need to be really important people. I said, yeah, so who's the most important person that you think we could get that would be, great? And she thought for all of like 10 seconds like this, thinking, and then she just suddenly said like, David Attenborough. Like we're going down the shops to buy a bag of carrots. Let's just go and get David Attenborough. And I was like, yeah, let's go and get David Attenborough. And I was like laughing so much. And I said, you do know that he's like so famous and so busy that it's very, very unlikely, he doesn't do email. You can't phone him up. You've got to write to him. He probably gets 1 million letters a day. So I was really kind of preparing her for a huge disappointment. And she wrote this lovely letter and, about her idea, and she did a painting of the statue, and she stuck one of her tiny little ammonites in the letter, and off it went. Within 3 days, a handwritten reply back from him saying, brilliant idea, totally support it, put me down as one of your patrons, and thank you very much. The ammonite is now the smallest in my collection.
So you get the letter, you open it up, and it's within 3 days. This is a reply from David Attenborough.
Well, you know straight away that it's something special because it's handwritten envelope. And I mean, nobody handwrites anything anymore. So when I kind of held it and looked at it and saw it had a London stamp mark on it, I looked at it and I thought, bloody hell, that has got to be from David Attenborough. And it was like an old man's scrawly handwriting as well.
Sort of shaky, yeah.
Yeah, like a shaky handwritten thing with a, and I thought, blimey. And it was only like a little thin thing. It wasn't, like a big chunky letter. And yeah, and it was to me and Evie, and we opened it, and we just couldn't believe it. We were like, wow.
You've also got old mate Dean Lomax.
Yes, yeah. Well, Dean,
Alice Roberts. So how did Dean come about? Because he's like me.
Well, I mean, Dean's so lovely. He's
Mary Anning
such
fan.
a brilliant sort of champion of Mary's. Totally. I mean, before he came on board, I'd read that he was the only paleontologist to name an ichthyosaur after Mary, which I just thought was amazing. He didn't have to do that. It could have been a Lomaxii, whatever, but he didn't. He decided to call
Flintii.
Yeah, or Flintii, yeah. So yeah, he was lovely, and he's quite funny. I have quite a lot of banter with Dean because I think we're on the same humour level. And Alice, yeah, I kind of thought we want to make sure that we've got a real balance of male and female, and I've always loved her. I've always thought she was really amazing, very, very creative, intelligent woman. And I found out who her agency was, and I contacted her agent and said, do you think you could, pass this message on from Evie and I, and this is what we're looking to do? And again, it was like, yeah, straight away, no ifs or buts, just came straight back and was like, I'd love to. And actually, out of all of the patrons, she's been the one that's kind of done the most, really, out of the really kind of busy ones. She did our amazing campaign film that we filmed at the Natural History Museum. She came along for the day for that.
And she did a limited edition print, which I have a copy of,
yes,
on my wall just over there.
Wow, brilliant. Yeah.
So it's interesting, you were talking before about like other statues and things being built and people going, oh, and being inspired by Mary's story, but also what you and Evie and the team have done. Because I have to say, as a singing paleontologist, Mary Anning was always my hero. Well, even before I was a singing paleontologist, she was always the science hero. And I'd always thought, I should really do something. I should get around. I should do, I've got a song in me or something. It was when I saw the campaign that you guys started begin to unfold, and I've gone, I need to do this. I need to write the song. So we did the first Mary Anning song. And then from that, Gemma, who's Mary Anning in the video clip, she and I kept talking about stuff, and we're like, there's an album in this of songs about different aspects of her story. And we, there it is. Do yourself a favor. But we're now, so Gemma and I are now looking at taking some of the songs from that and her working on without me in it. I love the fact that I don't have to, it's having her as Mary doing a one-person cabaret style show where it's like, hi, I'm Mary Anning, this is my story. I love the fact that so Gemma's just about to turn 20, so she's teenage Mary Anning. We don't often see teenage Mary Anning.
She was actually at the height of her fame. She was in her kind of mid-20s. That was the height of her fame.
Yeah. So I have to say, like, this doesn't exist without you and Evie having.
Oh, thank you. That's so lovely to know. Yeah.
So, and please pass on my thanks to Evie as well, because these things matter. And I think all of the things, whether it's Dean tweeting or Alice, the idea of the statue, there's another biopic coming out soon, isn't there? Mary Dinosaur Hunter. I don't know what, or Mary Anning and the Dinosaur Hunters. Which is odd because
it was. I'm not sure what's happening with that, because she had funding for the first half, but I don't think it's Sheila somebody or other. I can't remember her surname, but I don't think she got funding to finish the second half of it.
What are the moments in this? And then you spoke of one of them, that moment of rage with Evie, the David Attenborough letter turning up. One of the great things is that as we're talking, over the last few weeks, we've seen moments of the statue being built. So far, what are the moments that for you that have got to you emotionally, where you've gone, oh my goodness, oh my God.
I think one of the biggest moments was you never really know when you've signed off a maquette, which is the scaled down version, and everyone just loved it. Everyone was just blown away by it. And because it was so lovely, and because I loved it so much, I didn't want to have that feeling of kind of like, oh, when I saw the big one.
Or what if you don't like it? What if it doesn't?
I just thought, if it didn't have that, I don't know, that je ne sais quoi, that kind of like presence that the maquette had. And her studio is brilliant because it has to be cogs, the clay and everything. And we went up this little metal staircase and the doors opened. And the bit where she works was all kind of curtained off to try and keep some of the heat in. So we walked into this brilliant, I don't like glass lighted roof, and all the light was coming in. And it's a beautiful airy place, and she pulled the curtain back and literally walked in. And when I kind of saw her and I kind of really took her in, I thought, wow, like literally it was almost like she'd given it Alice in Wonderland dust, and it had just gone and grown. It was just, in fact, better, because obviously you just can't get the detail in the expression and in the face. And I mean, one of my favorite posts that I did was when I kind of reached up and put the camera right up in front of her face and took a picture of her face, so you're really looking into her eyes. And I just think it was just so amazing. So for me, couldn't get excited until I'd actually physically, that curtain pulled back and I walked in and saw her in clay form, and I just knew, done, brilliant, excellent. So that was a real kind of emotional kind of oh, thank God for that.
Yeah, but I also remember you tweeting when you reached the target amount.
Yes.
About
that was
the tears and the like. Oh my God, we started this thing, and you don't have a roadmap. You've got advice and suggestions from other people. You don't have you're like, well, I'm going to do a thing. How do you do the thing? I don't know. I'm just going to do the thing. And then you get to that point where it's like, this just got real.
Yeah.
You've got the money to make this thing.
Well, we were stuck at 70 for quite a long time, and I kind of thought, do you know what? I'll take that. If that's where we're at now, and we don't have the reach, and that's what we're gonna. I'll take that, because what that 70 will allow us to do will be commission the artist, because that's how much just the actual statue cost. And then I thought, we can go again. So once we've got the statue and we can take pictures of that, then people go, oh my God, that's amazing. We've got to get that erected. We've got to sort all that out, We've
got to,
so that was kind of my way of
we've
thinking.
got this thing. Yeah.
We've got this thing, we need to put it somewhere, people. We need more money. But then I don't know what happened. I think what we did, I did a thunderclap. And this just shows the outreach and the love for her. And what we did, we spoke to all our key people and all our patrons that have all got over 30,000 followers. And we said, a thunderclap is you all at the same time on the same day retweet the same thing. And we put together the tweet, and we gave it to Alice, and we gave it to Dean, and we gave it to other people. And also at that point, I'd noticed that the guy that does Horrible Histories, Jenner, what's his name? Jenner is his surname.
Him, yes.
Ben Jenner, no.
Yeah,
anyway,
he does
he's amazing
podcast as well, I think. Yes.
Yeah, very brilliant. You're Dead to Me.
Yes, love
it. He'd retweeted some tweets of ours, but not regularly. So I did a message to him, thinking he might not answer, saying, look, we're doing this thunderclap on Twitter at 11 o'clock on this date. Will you? And he was like, yeah. And so we had Alice and Dean and all these I think there was about 4 quite high profile people all did it. And then it was the people that picked up from that, and the people and that's why it reverberated. It's like a drop in a penny in a, you know, and it went, blah, 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 blah. And we had all these amazing people just retweeting us, and it literally went mental. It went blah, 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 and it was so quick. And we were lying in bed, and I kept refreshing. I couldn't keep up with refreshing, and it was going tick, 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 tick. And then it just went boom across the 100K mark. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't speak. I was like, we've done it. And it carried on going. I think in the end, in that particular, on that particular day, I think it was something like 115K on that day. And in total, including gift aid, we've raised about £150,000.
I was going to say that the campaign itself has been so instrumental in raising Mary's profile. Not just the idea of the statue or whatever, but just the very campaign, the existence of the campaign means people are talking about it. And as you say, these thunderclaps of retweeting and stuff. I want to just finish off shortly with the chat. As a mum of Evie, who you think back to that moment where Evie got so angry, how have you seen her journey through this? What do you think she takes from this?
I think she's very much like her dad in personality. So she's not an extrovert. I think I'm very much an extrovert. She's very much an introvert. She's never really enjoyed the limelight and the interviews. I think she's found that incredibly difficult. And also she had quite a lot of lower self-esteem. And I think having the chance to be the spearhead of this campaign when she was little gave her so much confidence that it's actually made her a much more considered and grounded teenager. And there was a point when she was little, sort of around 9-10 years of age, where she was really struggling with little bits of anxiety, but kind of like her self-esteem. Like she just didn't think she was capable of this or this. And I think the big turning point was when BBC Newsround asked her to do her own report, and they sent a TV camera crew down, and she had a little microphone with Newsround written on it and notes, and she was asking people questions, and it was just so lovely to see. And I thought, where's this little girl that has low esteem? It was just a real turning point for her. So I think from that regard, the campaign has been hugely. But if I ask her now, though, she'll be like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Because she's 14, she's a teenager. But I think she'll look back and she'll reflect, and I think she'll be like, "Wow," And I keep telling her as well that this is such an amazing thing that she's done, and it will always be there. And it will be something that you can always talk about. In fact, I lost my job in COVID. This is really interesting. And I was working for Lush, and Lush had to shut down all their shops. 300 people gone overnight. It was horrific. And I was a bit kind of like wrong age, wrong salary bracket, living in Dorset. There's not much call for fashion specialists. That was probably one of the last jobs at Lush in Poole. Anyway, and then I've been working there a year now. Work for another fashion company, an online entrepreneurial internet company called Elizabeth Scarlett, who do these really beautiful embroidered accessories. And when I had my interview with the CEO, the first thing out of his mouth was, "Tell me about Mary Anning Rocks." And that was all he wanted to talk about. And I kind of thought, wow, and we didn't go into it thinking that it would be a platform we went into it because it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do because it was wrong. It was wrong that this woman didn't have a statue in the place where she was born, and that her voice had been forgotten, and that she didn't have any learning legacies, and people weren't shouting from the rooftops about her. It was wrong. But the lovely knock-on effect, not just for my daughter, but also for my, career, I think that really shone a light, and possibly one of the reasons why I got the job, So Mary's got a lot to answer for.
Yes. Well, look, there's a whole musical coming. So, okay, to finish up, where to next? Any more statues?
Well, I know, yeah. Because we've raised so much money, there was always conversations from the very beginning that the statue was just a physical representation of her. So it was like a focal point for remembrance and respect. But off the back of that, we wanted something a little bit more sustainable that was more sort of attainable as well, because not everybody's going to be able to come down to Lyme Regs to see her. So we always talked about a learning legacy and what that would look like. And as things have progressed, it's grown and grown, and now we've been supported by a number of other foundations who have gifted money towards it. We're going to launch the Mary Anning Rocks Learning Legacy off the back of the statue. So that's not for now, because literally no one's got the headspace. But as soon as the statue's up and she's happy and she's there, the next stage is a learning legacy. And that for us is going to be the really exciting stuff, because we're going to work with lots of children from underserved backgrounds that wouldn't even get the chance to go and see the beach. I mean, we live on an island, and you know, there are kids in inner cities that haven't even had the chance to go and see a beach, let alone go and fossil hunt. So we want to work with those communities and work with those children and just create as many Marys in the making that we possibly can and get them down on the beaches, pay for that. And then also lots of free learning material, downloadable fact packs. We're doing an app and an actual map that you can download and print off. So if you want to physically do it, that will walk you all over Lyme Regis and take you to all the places where she lived, where she died, where she was born, where she was educated, all the support mechanism, all these people, where the Philpott sisters lived, where Della Besh had a house, all these amazing places that no one ever really, you know, sort of like a walking tour that people can take, which I think will be absolutely amazing. And then a fossil hunt with Evie, like a real straightforward, simple guide, do's and don'ts, what to do. And I think that'd be a really lovely thing to do as well. So yeah, we've got lots of plans.
I cannot think of a better note to finish on than that in terms of looking to the future and the legacy. And I cannot think of a better day, even though in England you're not there yet, International Women's Day, to have talked to you about someone who is a hero to both of us and to Evie. So thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you for having that crazy idea, and for Evie being angry, and for that then manifesting in itself in all the things that have come from it and all of the things that will come from it.